Hey guys, this is Laura Petrocco with Camera Behind the Curtain, and welcome to Off Script. This is a new series where we will be talking to the artistic and technical minds around the theater community. Joining me today is Jeff Clark, the musical and artistic director of Indian Hill's upcoming production of The Phantom of the Opera. Jeff, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk more about the show.
I am too. So, Phantom is your first endeavor of doing it all, artistic directing and musical directing. Tell me about this experience.
It's been a huge task. My education has always been on vocal music. I don't have the background in dramatic, artistic work. It's mostly something that many years of doing stuff for competitive show choir and music directing shows now for about 15 years. I think I've just learned a lot of the tricks of the trade, and it's something where I feel like a lot of the students that I've worked with in the past are ready for taking things to the next level. And a show like Phantom of the Opera, because it is an opera, you're actually doing the music almost more than the dramatic aspect. So this just seemed like a natural way for me to make the transition from the vocal music world into the dramatic world, especially with a show like this. It has such high demands for the showmanship, for the technicality aspect of it, and of course the operatic singing.
Who are some of your directing influences?
From the theater aspect, I would have to say someone like Hal Prince was definitely an inspiration for me, and not just because of him being the director of The Phantom of the Opera, but because Hal Prince was somebody who didn't really have the background in dramatic directing. He struggled to get established, and reading up on his book, The Director's Life, and watching the documentary, it was very interesting for me to see how my background really started with other areas like in vocal music, and I did show choir for many years, and the competitive show choir life really prepared me, I think, for a lot of these elements.
Sure. Let's talk about that. You were involved with the Fairfield Choraleers, correct?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about them.
So I directed 3 show choirs while I was at Fairfield. The Fairfield Choraleers, which is the top mixed show choir, Pure Elegance, which was an all-women's show choir that I started, and then a junior high group called Rhythm Express. And they were very well known, won a lot of awards, including the World Choir Games back in 2012 when it was here in Cincinnati. And I think it was interesting for me because I had a parent come to me after we won the World Choir Games and said to me, "Jeff, what are you doing?" And I didn't understand her question, and she said, "You've done it all. You've made your mark in the show choir. What's next for you?" And it really made me think later on, gosh, where do I go from here? And it just shows you that you can always keep, offshooting to new things in life and taking your experiences with you. And I realized that my new calling, I think, is to get really in depth with taking a show and making it my own and making sure that it is done to the highest level possible, and I'm ready for it.
For sure. And you kind of mentioned the show is a big show. Introducing this kind of show to students, how did you approach that?
The biggest thing was telling them that you are truly opera performers. The show, as most people probably know the story, it's revolving around the Paris Opera House at the turn of the century. So everyone who's in the show are members of the company. They're part of this location. And the style of singing then is not what we sing today, especially for teenagers, especially who people are used to the multimedia world of today. This is a totally different way of singing. So I had to go back to the classical elements. We're very lucky here at Indian Hill High School that many of our students do study privately. So we have many voice teachers that have been working with our students to capture that opera style. And it's not just your placement of the sound, but it's also about how you carry yourself as a performer, the posture, and how there's just a robust quality to the singing that is way different than any contemporary musical theater that I think most people are used to these days.
Sure. Opera singing is very technical, like you were just saying.
Absolutely.
Did you have any concerns going into the casting and making sure that your students could do that kind of singing?
Absolutely. So the concerns, first and foremost, are the vocal health aspects. How can a teenager perform these complicated aspects that truly are for an advanced opera performer in high school? So this show with this cast was definitely something I did a lot of soul searching to know that we actually have the students that could handle this for their vocal technique, and the students are doing amazing. They're making sure they have it. They're making sure that they warm up. Everybody's using steamers backstage, everything to be worried about for vocal health, and making sure that they take care of themselves like a true performer would, as though they were part of the professional world, which again, from an educator standpoint, that's what we are looking for. We'd love to train these students, whether or not they go on to the performing arts as a career, they can be lifelong advocates of the arts because they see what it takes to put on a show of this magnitude.
Right. You mentioned off camera about the amount of student involvement in this production and I guess with every other Indian Hill show.
Yes.
Can you kind of tell me a little bit more about that? What are the students doing?
Sure. At Indian Hill High School, we have a tradition here called the powwow. And the powwow is a name given to a variety show that started many, many years ago and over time became known as the big musical event. And so we're definitely very lucky to have a community here that appreciates the arts and wants to make sure that our students have the best possible, not just in the staffing, but making sure that we have the high level of academics that are able to drive the students to be able to be involved in multiple things. My thought going into this was, how can we involve as much of the student community as possible into putting the show together? So the tradition has been in the past that the students do run many of the elements, but we do have coaches, we have people that have come in to assist with that on the front end. But then once we get to our final tech runs, it is totally student driven, and they're calling the cues and they're doing the full show. The robotics students are running the boat remotely. So it is a wireless controlled boat. We actually have such wonderful students that can do one aspect for tech, but then they move over to do something else in the show. One student is controlling the boat while he's also a featured dancer in the opening Hannibal chorus.
Wow.
So it's awesome to see the multitasking that our young people can do,
Yeah.
again, while pulling off a show of this caliber is crazy.
There are unbelievable connections that can be made with just theater in general.
Sure.
Tell me a little bit about those connections that you have made.
As you probably know, I think that the theater world is a very small world.
Yes.
I think that we all seem to know everyone, that we all run in the same circles, and everyone's either heard of that show or heard of that person.
Right.
One person that's a mutual friend of ours is Kyle Fisher,
Yes.
who has worked with shows with Footlighters, and he's a choreographer who's choreographed for a show choir by the name of The Company from Piqua High School. And so it's amazing for me to see the connections that have been made, people who work on my staff, people like Ed Cohen, who's my assistant director, who's very well known in the Cincinnati area, has been my guidebook, I believe, for this year for a lot of the directing choices that I've made. And his wife, Deanne, has always been, Deanne Brill's been amazing as a resource for me. But I think most importantly, it's just the collaboration of having people who do both the show choir and the musical theater world, like Jay Goodlett, who's our choreographer, and he's worked with the schools here at Indian Hill for a long time, has a great tradition, who brings a whole new level with his background with Cincinnati Ballet. And like I said, it's that small world collaborative feel. And a former student of mine, Kendra Thomas, is also my assistant director.
Okay.
She was the stage manager when we did Phantom of the Opera in 2008 at Fairfield. So for her to be back here with me and making it also a very easy transition to go into it, because she does teach a drama class here at Indian Hill.
Okay.
And it's been great for her to be that person, especially her and Ed together have helped guide me in the dramatic aspect, which admittedly is not my forte. But the musical part, and again, from the show choir background, it's been awesome because, again, I can have that high level of showmanship that I really talk to my students about from a daily basis, and not just in vocal technique, but in choreography, how they carry themselves, their posture, their mannerisms, and how you pull off a show that doesn't look like a high school, but you truly are having a show that actually takes things to that higher level that most people in high school wouldn't be able to dream about, especially a show like Phantom of the Opera.
Right. Well, Theater World, Indian Hill's production of The Phantom of the Opera is opening tonight, and you do not want to miss it. Jeff, where can they get their tickets?
You can get tickets online. The information is below. You could also call our box office number, which is 513-272-9448. But tickets are going fast. I'm not sure by the time everybody sees this if we're going to have many seats left, so I definitely encourage you to get them while they're available.
That's right. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much. This is wonderful.
Absolutely. Thank you all for watching. I am Laura Petrocca with Camera Behind the Curtain, and we will see you soon.